Good morning, everyone. This is Ariel and Amanda. Ariel will be playing the part of Eve, and Amanda will be playing the role of the therapist. I hope you enjoy.
Hi.
I've been in recovery from drugs and alcohol for about 5 years, and 3 months ago, when I found out that I was HIV positive, I immediately fell back on the comfort of alcohol, and I hate myself for doing that. I feel worse that I'm drinking again than I do that I'm HIV positive, and I know that sounds crazy, but I do.
Yeah, I know we've met before. You've talked about like all you've been through. And I just, every time I meet with you, I see your resiliency and I see the strengths that you have and the insight that you bring to me. And you were sober, was it 5 years that you said?
Yeah, about that. Almost exactly 5 years.
Yeah, that's huge. And so it's obviously hard when you're sober that long and then you relapse again, like the feelings that come back when that happens. So I was just kind of wondering if we could start the session off with me wondering just like what your feelings are and what emotions have come to you when you have relapsed this time.
I'm angry. I'm angry at myself. But I think what's hard is to deal with the shame. I just, I know I've done it before, and I know I can do it, but I fell back so quickly on those habits that I'd worked so hard to change, and I didn't even feel like I could control it. It just happened, and I thought I was really strong, but turns out I wasn't.
When it was all that work that you did for so long and then it seemed like something just happened so quickly and like what happened to all of that work that I just put in myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were some of the feelings that you had when you were sober, when you weren't drinking?
Well, I was happy that I wasn't relying on the drugs or the alcohol to numb myself. Maybe I was a little proud. I know that it was a hard thing that I did, and a lot of people can't quit the way that I did. But there also was a deep sadness too. I made these positive strides, but there was still that. I was still depressed and sad a lot.
Yeah, so some of the same feelings were there when you were drinking and when you were sober, and there are also some feelings and emotions that were there when you were sober that you didn't have necessarily when you were drinking. And I'm wondering too, like what, and this might kind of sound like a funny thing too, but sometimes people talk about like their relationship with something that's going on in their life, and so I'm wondering, what is your relationship? If it feels like you have a relationship with your drinking, like how would you describe that relationship?
How would I describe it? Oh, that's a tough question. How would I describe the relationship with drinking?
Do you feel like you would call it a relationship?
I think I wouldn't want to call it a relationship because I don't want to, accept that it has that level of importance in my life. I don't want to really, I don't want to give it that power almost, but it has been a really large part of my life since I was very young, so I guess it would be a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's kind of an abusive relationship. I drink and I turn to drugs when I really I feel like I need support to deal with the negative emotions that I'm feeling, but then in the end, it leaves me worse off. So I guess I might call it an abusive relationship. I mean, is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, I think that's like a great way to put it because it's not a relationship that you want to be in. It sounds like it's something that's not doing anything good for you, but yet it's still there and you're still in it often. Um, and so I'm wondering too, so with narrative therapy, which is a type of therapy that I use, we have this thing called externalization. And I was wondering if you have ever heard of that, externalization or in narrative therapy. And if you haven't heard of it, I would explain it further to you.
Not really, no.
No? Okay. So it's really, so when you have a relationship, such as like with your drinking, sometimes it's hard to take action on something that you're like, or you could say with your abusive relationship with drinking, like it's hard to take action on that because it's like almost part of you. And so sometimes when we externalize something and we take it and we put it like aside, you can put it like on the other side of the room, or you can just put it anywhere away from you, like the distance that feels comfortable. Sometimes that helps people take action on it and do something about it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I know it's kind of a weird thing to think about. It's definitely not like usual or normal thing. Just recognizing that too. But does it make sense how I'm explaining?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense that if I were able to take, this abusive relationship and maybe, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. I'm willing to try it.
Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes I've noticed it can help people. So when we kind of externalize it, we put it over on the other side of the room or the other side of the street or like wherever this problem is going to go. We also call it, to further externalize it, we call it the problem or the whatever we want to call it. And that kind of helps push it to the side even more because the person is not the problem here. The problem is the problem. And so I was wondering too, just to separate yourself even more from the abusive relationship, the drinking, what would you exactly want to call it? I mean, I know you've actually named it like the abusive relationship. Is that what you would want to call it, or would you want to go further and call it something else?
Well, I mean, the abusive relationship works, but when I want to drink, when I'm feeling that need to drink, to me, and I have a friend that I've talked to about this, and when I talked to her about it, I almost wanted to call it the pit. I get this deep, almost like a pain in my chest, and it's like a pit, and I need to fill it up with something. And that's when I know that I'm going to drink. When I feel that inside.
That's a great way. I've never heard anyone putting it that way, and I really love that because it's not just like a name you give, but it's also a feeling. Like you're connecting the feeling with also like this name of this thing that is just not good. It makes you feel horrible.
Yeah.
Do you know, like when you think of the pit, does it look like anything? So it has a feeling. Does it have a look or a color or an image or anything like that?
Well, it's gonna sound a little silly, but growing up, they were very popular movies. Have you ever seen the Star Wars movies?
I have to admit, I probably don't want to admit this to everyone, but I have not seen any of the Star Wars movies.
Well, then it won't make much sense to you. But in one of the Star Wars movies, there's a pit that there's a creature in, and it's called the Sarlacc. And to me, it's kind of what I imagine this pit is like. It's not only like a dark, deep hole, but it's also like a creature.
Yeah.
That eats and swallows you know.
Yeah.
No, I guess it won't make much sense if you haven't seen the movies, but that's
Well, I haven't. I can like picture something. It might not be exactly what it is in the movies, but no, I think that's a good description, and it's clearly something that's not great and not that anybody wants. And so, like, how comfortable would you be, like, if you could place it somewhere in your world? It doesn't even have to be in the room. Like, how close? I mean, where would you want to put it? Would you want to put it, for example, in a chair? Would you want to throw it across the street? Would you want it in, like, tell me where you'd want it.
Well, as much as I don't want it to be part of my life, I kind of want it somewhere where I can see it, because I feel like if I'm not keeping an eye on it, then it's very easy for me to forget that it's there. So I want to put it within eyesight, like maybe just like across the room.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because I'm sure everyone would just want to like throw the pit as far as possible, like get out of my life. But then how do you know when it's going to come back?
Yeah.
Awesome. And I want to go into too, just looking at like when the pit has been more present and less present in your life. And so I was just wondering the times that it was less present. So maybe like during your 5 years of sobriety, or other times in your life it was less present. Like who was there for you? Who was supporting you? What was working?
It was, as we've talked about, I got sober almost, because I missed my family, because I didn't want them seeing me like that. They were always an important part of my life, and when it got really bad, I pushed them all away because I didn't want them to see that. But when I made contact with my mother and my sister again, my father, it felt like not that the pit was full, but that it didn't have as big of a pull on me because I had them back in my life again.
So you had some strong supports that were there for you, and when the pit was less present. When the pit seemed to kind of creep back in, and was more of a stronger influence in your life, who was there, and like what was going on for you?
Well, like I said before, it sounds weird, but I'm not that I'm not worried that I have HIV. Obviously, I'm worried. It's not a good thing to be facing. But it was more that conversation with my ex that made me remember what I was like when I was with him. That having that contact with him after not speaking with him for 5 years, it reminded me a lot of what I was like when I was with him.
I almost wonder, was it like a trigger to speak with him for you?
I mean, maybe I might call it that, yeah.
Yeah. It brought up other memories and other feelings of when you were with him. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, almost.
What else was like happening for you kind of leading up to like when the pit kind of came back into your life? So you were saying like you found out, well, you talked to your ex-husband and you found out about the HIV. What else was, if you can like dive kind of more deeper into what else was going on for you?
You mean like the feelings that I was feeling, or what was happening in my life?
Just kind of like what was happening. Could be feelings too, but I'm thinking more of like what other factors were happening in your life.
Well, I don't. That's a tough question. I mean, I got the news right after I'd had a really rough week at work. Maybe that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, like was there any other stressors maybe?
I mean, yeah, there were. that conversation came after I'd had a really rough week at work. They're piling a lot of new responsibilities on me, and that's fine. That's great. I'm one thing I do know is that I'm good at what I do.
Mhm.
I'm a good nurse. Even when I was drinking, I planned out my schedule so that my drinking and the drug use wouldn't affect my work.
Mhm.
I made it to work and I did what I needed to do. But I don't have that release anymore. So sometimes when the stress builds, I don't have a way of coping. And my family isn't always there to talk to me when I need someone to talk to.
So there was extra stressors going on for you on top of finding out about your HIV, on top of talking with your ex-husband, and then also when you felt all this stress, you were like, "Who's in my life?" Like you didn't have the same support that you've had in the past, and so then you kind of turned to the drinking, and the pit kind of like came in real quickly.
Yeah, you could say that. It, as much as I hate to admit it, it was always a really, obviously it had negative effects on my life, but it was always a way for me to blow off steam.
Mm-hmm.
It did what it needed to do, as much as I hate to admit that,
Right.
and I don't have that anymore.
Right. It seemed like it kind of helped you in the moment.
Hmm.
It took the stress away, the relief.
Yeah.
If I were to ask you about like your relationship with the pit and just how would you want to change your relationship with the pit?
I want to, I want to be able to talk with it. I don't want it just to have this pull in my life that I can't fight against. I want to be able to, I don't know, maybe talk with it's not the right word.
I like that though. I mean, it's not a person, but it's something that's there, like a person, very often for you. And I wonder, because I think you're onto something with talking with it, and sometimes it's really hard to see um, like what's going on in our lives when so if a problem like the pit kind of creeps up and it's like how did like boom right in our lives like right in our face how did you get there kind of thing and it seems like it's so quickly and it's just like I have no idea what led up to this and so I'm wondering you're saying like you want to talk to the pit and how you could use that in kind of um, looking at like what's leading up to you when you feel like the pit is more present in your life.
Does
That makes sense?
Yeah.
I can explain it further. So like, for an example, say maybe like you didn't get a good night's sleep and then you went to work and you just had like a really rough day at work. And then maybe like you just didn't feel well all day. And so you already had all these things going on for you, and it just that day seemed like the pit was just there. It wasn't going away. It was getting closer and closer. It was just kind of creeping up like behind you. Um, and then also you could kind of write down those things or kind of talk if you wanted to talk to the pit, saying like, "Hey, I know why you're right here because I didn't sleep all night. I had a bad day at work. I don't feel well." Like whatever those things are. And I just wonder if talking to the pit or if writing something down, however you want to do that, can be a way of you kind of seeing like, oh, this is what's happening for me when the pit all of a sudden is right there, like right next to me, right in my face.
That makes sense. I mean, I've thought about journaling for a while. I mean, maybe I know that. I mean, it's super popular right now.
I do feel like it's like a big thing right now.
People keep telling me that I should journal, so maybe I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe that would
Yeah.
let me figure out what I need to say.
I mean, whatever works for you. If it's just saying something out loud and saying like, "Nope, I know why you're here. I'm having a rough day. bad day at work, but you're not taking over right now, or if it's sitting down every night and writing a little note to yourself, like, yep, the pit is here, and I know, like, I know why this is happening for me today, and it's getting closer. And it doesn't always have to be that. It could always be, wow, like, I noticed the pit is way across the room today, and kind of like acknowledging what's going on for you that day that's helping the pit be further away.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay. I'm wondering, so if you can kind of try that out for the next week, and then when you come back, we meet again next week for next session. We can talk about like how that went. If it didn't feel good and you're like, yeah, that's not working for me, maybe we can look at something else that would be more helpful.
All right.
Just kind of explore.
All right. Well, I'll bring my scramblings, my scribblings next time.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.